Hey YouTube, ShredQuest here.
Hey YouTube, ShredQuest here. Thanks again for joining me on another YT Decoy unboxing and assembly video. The bike is working. I did ride it last night. The battery got charged. I rode the bike around. Everything's working great. I haven't tuned the suspension at all yet, really. One thing I want to do today is remove the dork disc. I did experience the free shift feature. It's okay. I don't know if it was doing a better job than I would. I haven't taken this off-road yet. We're gonna have to do that soon. What we're gonna do now is one of the final mechanical assembly steps, and that's just to remove the dork disc. Let me back up a bit. Last night I was riding this around, and what I wanted to ensure was that the chain was not going to pop off the first gear. The chain didn't fall off, great news, no big surprise there, right? It's an electronic shifting system, but the other thing I wanted to do was to confirm that the low set limit screw in the derailleur, while it was in the first gear, was making contact with the derailleur before I took this dork disc off. So call me paranoid, but I've had that happen before where you get chain suck in the back, and I just had to recently replace a rear spoke on an Ibis carbon wheel. I have an old 2014 Intense Carbine 29er, a medium that was handed down to me, and it actually fits. Somehow the Geo works. My friend at one point had the chain sucked down into his rear spokes, in between his cassette and his spokes, and one of the spokes broke while my friend was borrowing it, so I had to swap out that spoke, and I don't want anything bad to happen while I'm breaking in this bike. It feels really new, everything feels good, and I want to keep it that way, but I think it's safe to remove this dork disc. Those are actually really important, but no one rides them, and people would be looking at me like I was a total noob if I had that on trail, so I don't have a huge ego or anything, but I don't want the sideways glances. So anyway, let's get into removing the dork disc. I'm actually not going to put this in the stand to do the wheel removal. Don't criticize me too much. I'm going to flip this bike over to do the wheel removal, and I'll get the dork disc out and then put the wheel back, and we're good to go. There are moments when the stand is useful, but right now there are batteries in here. I don't want to take it out, and the bike is just too heavy. It's easier to flip over. Let's get this wheel off. It was really silly. Last night I took my leaf blower and I blew out the garage, and the battery wasn't installed yet, and freaking dirt and little rocks and even a leaf or two blew up into the battery compartment. It was super annoying. I had to try and get it out with like a vacuum, and I didn't want to have to undo this protective motor cover. I could have done that probably to get some of it out, but it's kind of funny. When you have a new bike, like before you get it all dirty and scratched and stuff, you really care about it and treat it with kid gloves like it's like a freaking museum piece, but then when you're bombing down the trails with it, right, it doesn't matter. On the Shimano derailleurs, release the clutch on the rear derailleur if you're going to be doing any work. Don't forget about that. Wheel comes right out. It's honestly not that heavy of a bike, even with cush core. I never had a problem with the weight of e-bikes. I always liked my e-bike heavier weight because when you launch and you come down, it just feels so plush. If your suspension is set up right, plus I have cush core. Yeah, I never minded the handling characteristics of an e-bike. All right, let's see if I can do this without making a complete idiot out of myself. Hopefully that camera angle is a little better. I use this cassette removal tool. It's the Spin Doctor one. I like it because you can use it with a spanner wrench if you need to, or you can use it with a socket. It has this little guiding pin in it. It's all about leverage here. That broke easily. Now I gotta be careful here. This is a XT cassette, and these cassettes are not one piece like the SRAMs. Better be careful when you take it off if you wanna put it back on easier, man. Not have it take a ton of time. Let's put that over there. No grease, completely dry. I don't want to put grease on it so it attracts a ton of dirt back here, but I do like putting grease on these splines, even the old HG cassettes, because sometimes, with a lot of cranking, they can score on the splines. Again, it's metal on metal, right? This is an i9 hub. This is not a Hydra hub. I'm not sure how much grease they put in here at the i9 assembly plant or factory, wherever this is assembled, this hub. So I'm not gonna mess with that. That's not a YT thing. I know YT doesn't use much grease in their assembly process. Now, I'm not sure. I think that's why I have these ready. Because I was thinking, okay, I'm probably gonna need some sort of pinch thing, which I do. I don't wanna hurt the spokes back here either. That's not coming off very easily. I'm not sure how to undo that. I don't want to have to take this rotor off again. Let me get a hook tool. Maybe that's the problem, is I can't get leverage from the back. I'll cut it off if I have to, no problem. See, there's these little black plastic clips holding it on. Definitely doesn't want to come off easily. I know they got to include all the safety stuff, because YT's a German company and there's a lot more stringent safety rules in Germany and Europe. There we go. We're in business now, guys. I don't even know if I needed the pliers, but maybe it's good to get started with the pliers, like that a little. But this hook is helping. Harbor Freight, baby. Harbor Freight's good for some things, you know? Some things it's not good for, but I got a lot of useful cheap stuff there. The thing I don't want is these needle nose pliers banging through, scratching the spokes. Dork disc almost gone. And that's it. Sweet. I should have put it flat. Stupid of me. We'll take that piece off. Well, that's not bad. That's not too bad. Is this a single piece? It is. Okay. I've never seen one of these new Microspline XT cassettes. It's already chewed up a little. From my test riding last night, so clean and nice, pretty. Let's definitely put a little grease on there. Gotta be careful. The wheel like this. Don't want that freaking flimsy ass 1.7 millimeter thick rotor to get bent. What the hell? Why are they even freaking speccing 1.7 mil rotors anymore? Stupid. On an e-bike, you need like freaking 3 mil rotors, man. I guess it's all a plot, right? To help ensure there are parts sales well into the future for every bike that's sold. A 3 mil rotor would warp less, it seems, right? Conceivably. So it would just be generally better, I feel. My 2 mil rotors did not last very long. On the Capra, I'm still running them, but I need to change them out. They are thin now. They're probably 1.6. I got one of those, God, what are they called again? The little measuring tools for the micro measurements. Caliper tool. Just adding a little grease to the splines. No biggie. It'll help this thing slip right on. I'm only doing it more towards the top, not towards the bottom, because it's just gonna push all the grease down when I put everything on and push it to the bottom. I can get behind there with a little rag though. Looks so much better without a dork disc. Bike Farmer recently, on one of his vids, said that his subscribers were telling him to use gloves with the grease and all the products in his bike repairs. Now, he has a bike repair shop and he's exposed to this stuff on a daily basis. I try and fiddle with my bike as little as possible, guys. I'm into riding, not fixing, I'll tell you that much. All right, that's looking good, actually. Put that little bit extra there. Get off the excess. That is a pretty free hub, guys, I'll tell you that much. Beautiful, brand new. The axle on my Hydra on the Capra Cage 6 is done fairly well. I take it apart every couple months to add extra Pro X grease in there, and it's doing okay. I'm still on that same axle. Here we go. I see where this goes. Just like that. So beautiful, guys. Really a thing to behold. Brand new parts, huh? And then they freaking get old with mileage and you're like, oh my God. You know, on an e-bike, it's worse too. Parts wear so much. And honestly, I was feeling some rough shifting from the free shift system in a couple of the gears. So I don't know yet how that's gonna need to be adjusted. I'm gonna have to research that a little, obviously. So I gotta learn all that stuff, but I'll take you on the journey with me. It'll be fun. Fitting together nicely. looks good. I never trust something. If it's too easy, I always take it apart and look again and redo something. Let me know in the comments if you do that too. If you're like, it's too good to be true, that was way too simple. I'm always second guessing repairs like that. So the hardest repair I ever had to do was a pinion gearbox. I got a pinion gearbox rebuilt by Gates. It was one of the first gen pinion gearboxes on a Z-Road Tanifa. I love that bike too, great bike. I had to have that rebuilt. There was like a pinhole oil leak in it. So I sent it back to Gates, and rather than pay Cycle Monkey here in the Bay Area, they're a vendor of Z-Road bikes and pinion gearboxes and stuff, so they can do the service. Rather than take it to them, I was like, I can do this, and I did do it, but it's a little difficult. You have two gear cables running from the handlebar to the first gen gearbox, and you have to set up the gears for like a push-pull type action with the gear shifter on the handlebar. Oh, what do you call those? Not a lever, not a trigger shifter, but a, I'll think of the name. Grease. Okay. Pro tip, guys, this cassette, it's gonna get pulled forward. So the reason I really learned to like the SG, is it SD or SG? No, it's HG and SD. I really learned to appreciate the SRAM SD, the cassette, because threading the cassette on to the free hub body is so much better. When you're putting this cassette onto splines, there's some inherent tolerance there between the splines and the cassette splines. And so whenever you're installing a Shimano cassette, definitely make sure that the whole thing has shifted as much as possible in the direction the force will be applied by the chain later. There's this bottom part of the cassette and then these upper pieces, and I'm just pulling forward with them, right? So that they're already against the splines. And that way, when I pedal very hard, they're not gonna shift suddenly and dig into the splines. That's actually happened to me before. I'm sure it's a much less of an issue with the microspline setup, the microspline free hub, but I could see that also probably happening even with the microsplines. Get this crank down. It's usually like 40 Newton meters or so. I just do it till the ring stops popping. That's usually pretty good. Just like that. Let's go ahead and get this wheel on. This is exciting. This has been a long journey, a long project for me, more so than the capper because I gave up filming on that one. I'm really happy that I filmed this. It's not for notoriety, it's just to, again, bring you guys along on a journey so that you can also share in my love for bicycles. I didn't get my license till I was 26 years old. I grew up very poor in North Oakland, and I was a food stamp kid, free government cheese, the whole nine. I grew up in the 80s when there were still like paper food stamps. You didn't have the EBT card or any of that, and you had to find free food in various places and other government assistance and stuff. And it was much less accommodating than it is now. I like to have the bike upright and then tighten the rear axle, or in this case, the rear quick release axle. All right, let me tighten down this rear wheel. Put the bike on the ground, and with the wheel slightly loose, with the rear axle slightly loose, I like to shimmy that rear wheel. I don't know, I guess I'm just shaking it out for the very small tolerances sometimes that these cassettes can have for shifting. All right, and that looks perfect. Spacing looks great. The wheel is dished perfectly. Spacing between the seat stays looks fantastic. When my friend got one of the YT Decoys, one of the first gen ones, when it had the Fox Transfer Kashima seat post, he had XTDI2, but the first gen, that was I think back in like 2019. But they used to spec a 2.6 rear tire on those, which was kind of a cool idea to me actually. So they used to have a bigger rear tire, which I wish they still did. It has clearance for pretty wide tires. I feel like YT kind of cheaped out and they got the 2.4. It's much easier to source, but it would have been nice to have a pretty thick tire on this. I wouldn't have minded because it would have been easier to put the cush core in and you just have more volume for the harder hits. But that's fine. This tire isn't gonna last very long, I'll tell you that much. On an e-bike, the rear tire does not last long at all. So there were a couple things that amazed me last night about this bike, which are really cool, nice surprises. The first was that I did not have to adjust the drop on the seat post. I did not have to take out this plastic dust seal right below the seat post collar. I did take it out, and I did ride around with the seat completely slammed in the frame without the dust seal, but that only gave me about 5 millimeters of drop, and I rode my Capra Uncaged 6 around, which I love. I like the geometry on that. I like the climbing position that I'm in, and I have no complaints there with my leg extension. With the 170 mil reverb axis post slammed in the Capra Uncaged 6 frame. No complaints at all. It feels great. And there's a 170 mil crank arm on the Capra. Now with this, the great surprise was that I don't have to adjust the drop on this SDG Tellus post at all. I can keep the dust seal in here as well. And after installing the 50 mil rise bar and the 33 mil length Renthal Apex 35 stem, I can say that somehow, magically, everything has aligned, including the smaller rear wheel, I feel. That's probably a reason why. Definitely the shorter crank arm at 160 on this Decoy MX. It could even be the seat, the height of the stack on the seat. That could be a factor as well, but this bike rides pretty much identical to my Capra. It feels identical to my Capra, which is amazing. Now, some people might say, hey man, you're crazy. Don't you want a completely different, new, fresh feeling bike? Yes. Of course, that would be awesome too. If I had like that kind of money to spend. You know, I was very interested, for instance, in the SRAM motor, the T-type motor system that they had. The Repeater PT from Transition, I wanted that, but the price tag was $13,000 with tax. It was just insane. Even on sale, it was extreme. It was like $11,000 on sale. So that was the first surprise, and it was really good luck. I don't have to mess with the seat at all. The post just works. I have full 200 mil of drop on the seat, which is great. I've never had a 200 mil dropper before, so I'm really excited about that. The other surprise with this that I found out last night was, let me preface this, the last time I owned a Shimano e-bike was back when I purchased one in 2018, the MetaPower 29 from Commencal. It had the external battery and, you know, sitting on the down tube, right? That was the 504 watt hour Shimano battery. It had the first gen EP8 motor, and it was an absolutely fantastic bike. I loved it. It was a large size. 2018, the eTube app was in its infancy, and last night I downloaded the eTube app to my phone and I connected to the bike's control system right here, the wireless control unit. And that part about setting up the eTube app is still a little clunky. It's not the greatest experience. Definitely like the SRAM Axis app a lot more. But the amount of tuning you can do to this bike with this, I don't think it's a 3rd gen EP801, but it does support the newest firmware update. And because of the electronic shifting and the ability to run free shift, the amount of tuning on this Decoy is amazing. I wasn't even in the fine tune mode in the app. I was just in the basic tuning mode. And in the basic tuning mode, you can create an extra tuning profile. They now have the race profile as well, by the way. Let me back up a little bit. I'm coming from this analog bike, riding analog exclusively now for a couple years, having sold 2 e-bikes to purchase the Capra because I'm not rich and I couldn't afford to have all those bikes. So I sold those e-bikes and I got the Capra. Fast forward to this moment in the present, and I'm connecting to the app. I made a custom profile and I tuned this e-bike to be very low in power. I'm getting excellent range out of the 730 watt hour. I think it's 730 or is it 720? I'm getting great range out of this battery, even though that was a compromise that I made getting this Decoy, because I really wanted a 900 watt hour battery minimum, or like an 800, you know, in the Amflow, something like that. I was concerned about range with this because I like to go on really long recon rides. The great thing is you're able to now switch between 2 separate modes just on the control unit while riding without even opening your phone, which is fantastic. But then if you go deep into the app, you can adjust the assist settings on this, and you can turn this bike into a light eMTB. It's great. I don't want a full power turbo boost only e-bike. That is not what I want at all. Because I've been riding exclusively analog, I'm really looking forward to getting some really good exercise, but a lot of like long mileage rides on this e-bike. And I don't want to start out in a high power mode. One thing I learned from riding e-bikes exclusively for 2 years is your body really becomes conditioned to only riding e-bikes and then getting back on an analog analog bike is extremely difficult. And I do want to continue riding my Capra, one day on the Capra, one day on the e-bike. I would like to maintain that for as long as I can. And part of the solution to that is to start off riding this not in full power. Sure, there may be times where I want to just have fun for a short lap at JMP, or I know I'm going on a 10-mile ride and I just want to crank it out real quick for time, or I want to have a ton of fun, and I'll just change it into the race mode that I have pre-programmed into this control unit as my second option. But my first option is just my super low power. I toned down the torque on Eco and also the output of the engine, and I toned it down for trail. I kept boost lower than the default setting so that it is also less power, because I always found, even in 2018, that the top level of boost, I did not mostly need it for trails that I was riding in the Bay Area. In order to get range from that early 2018 504 watt-hour battery, I decreased my power settings, my output settings in the eTube app then. I do have a lot of experience riding e-bikes, and I'm really excited to report, if you are thinking about getting a light or a mid-power e-bike with the Fazua motor or the TQ motor, and you're kind of on the fence and you're like, man, my buddies all have full-fat e-bikes, full-power e-bikes, and they've got the range, right? They have the bigger batteries in their bikes, and I want that too. Well, I'm telling you, now you can create up to 10 custom profiles on the eTube app with all kinds of power settings and output settings for your motor, and you can switch between two on the control unit while you're riding without getting out your phone. So if you're gonna ride around with friends with mid-power e-bikes, or maybe you want to ride around with some analog buddies, you could just create a custom profile now on the eTube app that's super low power, and you could just ride this with them, or you can ride with your mid-power e-bike buddies and just ride at their speed and power output. That's just simply amazing, and it's really a great development. I'm super happy now, because for me, the argument or the questions I had about mid-power, now with the tunability, I just think that it makes the argument to go, and this has always been my philosophy, it's a range game for e-bikes. It is about full power when you need it. When you need it. That's very important. When you need it. And now with all of the settings in the eTube app, you can have your cake kind of and eat it too. If I'm in a situation where I really need more power, I don't even need to go on the phone. I could just switch here. I'm sure at some point, they'll have multiple modes available on this control unit as well. But that was a really seriously good stroke of luck, I felt, finding that out last night. It took a bit of time to get used to the app and how to navigate it and stuff like that. It's a bit confusing at first, but then I got some documentation online, read the manual a bit, and better understood these are the configurations I can set. I still haven't even gotten into the nitty-gritty on the free shift, or how to go into manual if you want to turn off free shift. You can even use free shift manual. You can use a version of free shift where it's not shifting for you, you're actually just not pedaling and you're shifting. Well, I know this has been mentioned in other YouTube videos, but I was just reading this again in the documentation. So again, if you're wondering about getting a full power e-bike over a mid-power one and you're on the fence, if you go with the Shimano system, and I've ridden Bosch, the Gen 2 Bosch motor on the 2020 Orbea Wild, the tunability of the eTube app, and I rode this again today and I noticed the reduction of power, but it felt great. It still felt like an e-bike. It was just less power. So I'm really excited about that development. It's been, 6 years since I owned an e-bike. Shimano have had a lot of time to develop their app, and they've done a good job. And I never even got to the fine-tune settings. I don't even understand those yet. They look crazy. One other topic I wanted to go over is just that I'm quickly learning how difficult it is to juggle YouTube content creation along with your personal life, especially with a big project. I know you're thinking, man, you took this unboxing and this assembly you took it to the nth level. You made it much more complicated than it needed to be. But hopefully there are some people out there that understand that for me, building the bike the way I do, it helps me really understand all the functionality better. It helps me understand, if something does break in the future, how to pinpoint the issue, how to troubleshoot it much easier. If I were to just follow the YT build video on YouTube and do it that way, when it comes time to have to repair this bike, I'm not as connected to the bike, nor am I bonded to the bike. I know that sounds crazy. How can you bond to a mechanical thing? But this machinery, this mechanical device is going to protect me as well as potentially harm me, depending on how far I want to push it. So it's important to me to also somehow create some sort of relationship with this bike, because I will be shredding it and I'm going to be pushing it really hard, with the added benefit that it's essentially a carbon copy of the Capra, which is exactly what I was hoping in this case. So I can hop on the Capra one day and be analog. Oh, I want a motorized Capra experience the next day, and I can do that. And there's no surprises, a lot less of a learning curve, etc. I did sign up though for the GoPro premium account simply because, and this is the one reason that I found it would be useful. Not only can I upload from the camera into my GoPro account, I can use GoPro to save the footage, because I already ordered a 4 terabyte drive today from Costco for $240. That drive is going to house new footage, but it's also going to be a backup for backups. If you're not utilizing the cloud, you have to have a game plan for how you are going to save your footage, all your personal photos, documents, etc. I'm using Google Drive as it is, of course, along with many of you guys. But at some point, you do have to strategize. If you're going to be doing YouTube content creation, how am I going to store all this data? I realized I don't want to keep the raw footage that I'm capturing on my hard drives. A, I don't want to lose it. B, more importantly, I just don't want to manage it physically. All I'm going to have to do now is download the footage from GoPro, because it uploads in the original settings, right, with the original quality. And you have the option of downloading in 720p if you need to. It'll upload in the original quality, and now all I have to do is download that. I'm using iMovie actually. It's simple and it's free. I have a lifetime subscription to Final Cut Pro, but that's like almost overkill for what I need it for. And the longer I create content on YouTube, the more simplified my edits will become, just naturally. So subscribing to the GoPro Premium service does allow me to store the raw footage in the cloud. That way I won't have to store it on hard drives. I can use the hard drive space now for the actual rendered end product, those final master videos that I upload to YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to those thoughts. Hopefully you found it interesting. I did create a second YouTube channel called ShredQuest ChillQuest MTB, where I'm going to be doing pavement rides, cross-country rides with more commentary. I'm not going to be posting those hardcore downhill rides on the ShredQuest ChillQuest channel. For now, I'll be cross-posting any repair videos to the ShredQuest ChillQuest channel. So look forward to more content being uploaded onto that channel shortly. I appreciate your interest. As always, feel free to put in the comments what you think about all the things I just said, those 2 things that were really cool about not having to drop this seat post at all, and how this is very much just feeling the same as the Capra. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Am I just settling? Am I trying to rationalize a very expensive purchase? Something like that. Feel free to put in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me again today for one of the final steps in the assembly process for this now that was the other thing I was debating. Is this a 2025 because I received the bike in January? Or is this a 2024 because I ordered the bike in 2024? But thanks again for joining me today on one of the final assembly videos of this YT Decoy MX Core 5. It is a beast of a rig. It's going to be really fun. I like full powered e-bikes. I want to do long recons on this. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video and this whole series of videos. Thank you so much. Peace out.